Girls with an awkward introverted boyfriend husband. How did he approach you? He didn't. I approached him. But I asked him out twice and he didn't get the hint. It took a year later and us hanging out extensively for 8 months for him to ask me out. Except he asked me out by texting me, "Wait, are we dating or something? SMH." She approached me, which I think is pretty standard for shy people. Even still, it took a lot of hints for me to get it. "Hey, we should study sometime." Okay, cool. "Hey, here's my phone number with hearts used to dot the I's in my name, for studying." "Okay, thanks. What do you think of my new outfit? I kind of want to go out in it. Looks great. Have fun. I want to go out with you." She could have given you a fake number considering there's eyes in it. I kinda placed myself beside him and loudly talked about loving video games because he was playing on a console set up in our college game room. He asked if I wanted to play video games together and so I swapped numbers with him. I spanked his butt in Halo, then I let him spank mine. I spanked his butt in Halo, then I let him spank mine. Advanced maneuver. It happened really organically. We had some friends in common and started talking because of them. I could tell he was into me because he wanted to be around me all the time and I would always catch him staring. I had to stay in school until later some days and he would always stay with me even though he could have just gone home. We started talking more and more during that time we had alone and found out we had so many things in common. He got a lot more comfortable around me so he would make jokes, put his arm around me etc. A couple months later, we were at a party and he said he wanted to talk so we went to a more private place surrounded by these gorgeous roses. He was shaking and his heart was beating so fast before he told me he liked me and wanted to be with me. Then we kissed for the first time and have been together for 4 years now. Dang, that's pretty much a fairy tale. I'm the guy, not the girl, but she in fact approached me. I was sitting on the train at the back of the carriage when I saw her come in. She looked as if she was going to sit at the front. Almost all the seats were empty, but I saw her look up the back and she appeared to change her mind. She walked all the way down the carriage, then sat in the seat in front of mine. At this point I was wondering what I should do. I normally don't talk to anyone, but there were only about 5 people in the carriage and she walked past 10 empty seats to sit in the one in front of me. While I was still wondering whether I should talk to her or not, she turned around and started talking to me. We've been married about 12 years now. It is amazing how people can walk into your life at any moment, changing your life and theirs forever. I met him through my sister and she told me he lives nearby, so I randomly texted him. It was close to midnight once and asked him if he would want to watch a movie with me, and, surprisingly, he was in front of my door like 5 minutes later. We watched Totoro and he stayed until 4 AM. That's how we became friends. In school we often spend our time together and he kinda started to make his first moves. He wasn't flirting though. He just randomly grabbed my hand and sat very close to me often. This doesn't sound too nerdy, but just let me tell you. The first time I was at his place he showed me his pocket watch collection and his huge Minecraft world in which he rebuilt several Thai and German buildings. Many of them having to do with World War II, GDR and his homeland. I don't think that's how you usually flirt with girls, especially at 17, but I guess it worked and I love him very dearly. If I had $1 for every time I hooked up with a girl while watching a Ghibli movie, I would have $1. Let's just say Kiki was delivering baked goods while I was delivering something else. Don't trust that beep on IO though. Total dong block. Intro husband here. Went to a party that I didn't want to go to be a wingman for my friend. This girl he was trying to get with had a best friend who was the life of the party and center of attention, and I wanted nothing to do with her. I was chilling in the kitchen with the other introverts and this girl kept asking me to hold her drink while she did something. Literally no other conversation, then hold my drink. I kept putting it on the counter trying to ignore her till she finally grabbed my hand and asked me to come outside with her. I did, and as soon as we went out we saw her roommate passed out in the snow. I carried her roommate back to her apartment across the way and tucked them both in for the night and left. She got my number from her friend and texted me the next morning. Now we're 5 years and 2 kids later. She called dibs on you with that drink. Girls are territorials when at parties. Shy guy here. I accidentally told someone at the summer camp where we worked that I had a crush on her. Of course the person I told was a loudmouth, so I figured I would get to her and tell her first. It was amazing the level to which my anxiousness subsided for fear of her finding out from someone else after my words were all twisted up and misconstrued. To my surprise, she was obviously immediately interested, even though we had never even spoken before that. She thought it was cute that I needed to tell her myself and make sure that I told her the right way, with an explanation of what happened. She interrupted me while I was explaining and said, "Yes, I get it. We're going out now." Wow. She did happen to hear from 2 people later that day that I was telling everyone how much I liked her, which wasn't the case at all. She just told them, "Yep, I know. We're going on a date tonight." Still gives me butterflies. Been together 10 years, married for 5. Moral of the story: put aside shyness. Honestly, it's ridiculous. Be honest. Be true to yourself. Looks like my butt is off to summer camp. I'm gonna speak for my girl here. I just messaged her on that dating app after we both liked each other. She was warned though. My profile said you want a bad boy. I'm bad at everything, and after 2 months, I've rejected one offer to meet up. We did actually meet. Never been happier before. That is the best pickup line I've heard in a long time. Probably ever. I asked him out. On the first date, I walked into his room naked after going to the restroom. He took the hint and we're currently engaged. The naked man works about a third of the time, but the naked woman always works. He stood by my desk every morning looking sad and desperately trying to come up with small talk that wasn't about bagels. Then he checked what I was doing every day as he headed out to lunch. It was obvious he was trying to do the impossible. Talk to the human female. I eventually put him out of his misery and gave him my number and told him to take me to lunch when I got back from a trip. I'm the guy, but my best friend invited me to a concert and told me last minute he's bringing this chick he's into and not to blow it for him. So I go into wingman mode and just am acting like myself because I don't have to impress her, and made some small talk here and there. Apparently she didn't know he was into her and asked him for my number since she thought I was cute. She was supposed to move across the country in a week, so it was supposed to be a fun fling. But she came back 2 weeks later because she hated it, and we've been together 8 years. Best friend was cool about it and we all hang out together when we can. Mr. Steely or Gerald over here. We met at an engineering summer camp. They jammed us all into a dorm lobby for orientation. I was one of the last to enter the room and sat down on the only available couch space, which was next to him. He was struck with love at first sight. We exchanged a few brief sentences and then they turned on a movie and I fell asleep on his shoulder. I've fallen asleep on other random people's shoulders at other times in my life. I just fall asleep easy. I woke up deeply embarrassed and scurried off to my room. The next day, we naturally gravitated toward each other because we didn't know anybody else, and we hit it off from there. Being at camp made us both available for dating in a way that we wouldn't have been otherwise. The camp structure encouraged forced socialization and he was separated from his computer, and I was separated from most of my pastimes as well. If we'd gone to high school together, I don't think we would have started dating. Anyway, now we're coming up on our 11th wedding anniversary. We've worked out a pretty good system for mostly letting him be his deeply introverted self without making me feel too isolated. I can just imagine him sitting there awkwardly with a steaming head with you asleep on his shoulder. We met on Tinder and he asked me about breakfast food. I was suspicious because I thought it was going to be some gross pickup line, but no, he's just really into breakfast food. 3 years together this summer, living together for 2. I met my now husband at a mutual friend's housewarming party one night. I had decided to sneak away from the place to go home out of sheer boredom, so I told the hosts that I was going to Subway to grab food or they'd have tried to make me stay. Keep in mind this was at about 10:30 PM in a not so great area of town while I walked down the dark street to get to my bus stop. Now, there was a quiet guy from the party, the host guy's best friend. He decided while quite drunk that it would be a fantastic idea to run after me for a few blocks at full speed to walk me safely to Subway because he was hungry too. So here I am being chased by some rando drunk guy from the party. I'm getting ready to punch him if I have to, when he catches up and asks to tag along, LOL. We got to Subway, got food, and he walked me back to the party I wanted to leave, where we chilled in the kitchen for hours talking video games, anime and other crap. We traded emails because he wanted to give me some anime downloads and we could discuss series further. I still tell him that he's dang lucky I managed to decipher his terrible writing on that paper. After that he would bus all the way from across the city just to pick me up from work almost daily and walk me home for 10 minutes. We were watching anime heck when he first kissed me like a sudden spaz and asked, "Are you happy now?" Come to think of it, he's still never actually asked me out. We don't even know what would be considered our first date really. It's nearly been 11 years now though. Plus a kid. I wouldn't change one awkward thing even if he did freak the crap out of me at first. We're also both still terrible in social situations, but with each other our awkwardness sort of cancels each other out. Sometimes. While we were leaving a class, I complimented her on a dress she had worn the previous day. I still cringe. We aspire to be as elite as you are. I'll answer for my little sister's husband. I come from one of the loudest, in-your-face families you will find. My little sister married a guy who to my knowledge doesn't talk. I'm exaggerating, but at every family gathering he is armed with a book, and he knows how to use it. How they met is my sister's car got infested with bees. She went to ask a guy friend for help, but he was like, "No thanks." Then book guy put down his book and said, "I will help you." She didn't even know his name. At their wedding, book guy's father gave a toast. We never thought he would get married. Truly never ever. I'm not sure this is real actually. Your mother and I never thought you would have a wife. This went on for an uncomfortable amount of time. My sister is really beautiful and really into video games, and D&D, and comic books. Nice pull, book guy. Risked bee stings for love. I am the awkward introverted boyfriend. Since I considered her 100% to be out of my league, I also had no hopes illusions about ever dating her. Consequence, I wasn't as awkward with her as I usually am with women, and she ended up asking me out. Going strong for nearly 3 years now. 10/10 would date again. My girlfriend approached me at a barbecue, where I knew basically no one, and talked to me for about 2 hours. The next day she found me on Facebook and asked me on a date. 2 dates later she kissed me and invited me back to her place. I suspect she'll propose to me at some point. As a guy, this is the preferable way to start a relationship. Some mutual friends of ours came up with some plan for all of us to hang out, then they would all conveniently have to dip at the same time, leaving just us two. Was a little nerve-wracking at first, but we had a good time. Then he asked me out at the end of the night. I was a fishnet wearing, metal loving punker. He was in a band, a fun horror punk band that wrote songs about bad B horror flicks. He was the keyboardist and was so very painfully awkward, out of place, and had very little stage presence other than a fake bullet hole to the head and a white lab coat covered in fake blood and a very out of place Sum 41 shirt. I couldn't tell if it was ironic or not. LOL. It wasn't. LOL. I guess that left an impression on me. The show was a blast though, and I ended up buying a band tee that night. Fast forward 4 whole years and I came across his profile on a dating site. He stated right in his profile the band's name and I instantly remembered him. Here was this tie wearing, corporate IT guy, but I remembered this nerd keyboard player and thought, I have to let him know how much fun I had that night. It was a slow burn. It took us 6 months to meet as we both had very busy lives. Fast forward 4 more years and we are now married and expecting our firstborn next month. Ladies, go for the nerdy guys. He's the sweetest, kindest, smartest man I've ever known and I couldn't imagine my life without him. That's a pretty cool story, and congrats about your baby as well. BF here. Tried to act casual over Facebook with a message suggesting to get some coffee someday. When I realized that didn't work at all, I built up some courage and asked directly in person with a shaky voice for getting some lunch together someday soon. Result: 5 happy years and counting. That's a long lunch. I met my boyfriend through a friend. A bunch of us were hanging out at an arcade themed bar and she brought a few friends along, including my now boyfriend. I got tipsy pretty fast. I rarely drink so it doesn't take much, and started spouting comments like, how tall are you? 5'8", that's the perfect height for me. And where do you work? Midtown, oh man. We'll clearly have to hang out again since we'll obviously run into each other again. It was awkward and embarrassing and I never do this. Then, we go to a karaoke bar and he and I do a bunch of fun duets together. When it's someone else's turn to go, we're hanging out on the karaoke couch and kinda leaning into each other, almost cuddling. He finally asked me out at the end of the night, but said he would have been too much of a wuss if I hadn't give him all of those hints. Even by karaoke, he still had to ask my friend, while I was in the bathroom, "Do you think Jetta 998 would go out with me?" My friend pretty much slapped him upside the head, haha. He asked me would there ever be a chance we could be more than friends. I told him I had to think about it, but 10 years later and we're still together and married. Do you still tell him that you are still thinking about it? I'll answer for my girl. I'm the kind of guy who is confident in every aspect of my life, except for talking to girls I want to be with. Luckily for me, I'm okay looking, so Tinder always worked and I could at least pretend to be confident there. After a couple of crappy Tinder dates and a lot of matching, I matched with someone who said sick of people not being able to pronounce my name. She was Irish, and so I proclaimed that I could pronounce her name. She retorted, "You're Irish. I'd be disappointed if you couldn't." We chat, realize we're a lot alike, both just moved to the UK, both don't know anyone here, so we meet up and I pronounce her name wrong. There's two ways. She was not impressed. Coming close to my second year with her now, living together 8 months, head over heels for her and she's the same for me. 10/10 would pronounce her name wrong again. TLDR, a fadder almost cost me a date with my soulmate. The TLDR is something I'd buy a crappy women's gossip magazine to read the full of. Awkward boyfriend here. I was best friends with her for 2.5 years. I was undoubtedly in love with her, and I couldn't really go not admitting it anymore. I was telling my other friend I need to tell her and my friend just kept saying tell her and bugging me, so I just turned to her and said, "Hey man, I think I'm in love with you." And she said, "Oh, I love you too." And I said, "No, like for real, like non-friends and all that." And she said, "Yeah, I know, I'm not stupid, I love you too." It's been a year and a half since and we're going very strong. He didn't really have to. We were friends at the start. He brought me gummy worms because his then girlfriend hated them. It was love at first bite. Love over gummies. Reminds me of that long man ad that was on the front page just a few days ago. I just saw on her profile that she played tennis. Hi, do you like tennis? Thank God I look ok or we never would have met. First date was also awful. Good thing she fell in love with my really crappy dad humor. Haha, I am the introvert here, so let me tell you how I was fortunate enough to land my partner, and how I am the freaking worst and luckiest person around. So, second year uni, I was recovering from an absolutely do nothing relationship that I latched onto like a freaking limpet because I was suffering from moderate depression and had been for a few years. So, 6 months after I had split up from my previous girlfriend, I was on a night out at the local rock bar with my housemates and I ended up having another episode. Was pretty drunk and started texting my ex. Being a general sap and a drain on everyone's emotions, I was for that brief period of time one of the most pathetic cretins on the face of this planet. So my now partner spots me drinking myself into a stupor and sending damaging texts and sits down next to me, whips the phone out of my hands and tells me to explain everything. I kept trying to usher her onto more fun things like the pool table and the dance floor hole. I sat in the corner and she was having none of it. Ultimately the damage control sort of works and I spend the rest of the night under supervision. From there she takes me home, tells me to stop sending dumb texts and then goes home herself. Next day she starts texting me to check in if we don't see each other. Every day she was making sure I was okay, and for the next 2 months that was it. She arranged some movie nights at each other's just to keep each other company and talk about stuff. We were friends, and it just developed from there really. And another night of heavy drinking allowed me to have the courage to actually see where my priorities should lie, and ultimately have the courage to do something about it. I am super fortunate to have her in my life. And although I feel I've had a negative impact on hers which I'm super guilty about, she stuck around me for 7 years. I have done her so much wrong in that time too, and yet she still welcomes me home with a smile. She's my only friend, and it'd never have been any other way. I asked him out, Then I paid for the first date. I don't have time for traditional gender roles. We had been classmates in college for like a year, and I never saw him speaking to anyone. He told me he saw me reading manga on my phone and that gave him courage to talk to me. He just asked which one I was reading. We ended up having a lot in common and went to the movies to watch Mad Max Fury Road like a month later. Almost 3 years now. I'm the introverted boyfriend. I bribed her with cold Jack in the Box tacos via text. She came over, somehow talked until morning, featuring for me, and now it's been 3 years and I'm about to wife the frick out of her. Wife the frick out of her. That's cute as crap. Freshman year of high school. We were both in the school musical and got paired as a couple in one scene. I am terribly awkward and completely oblivious to anything. He asks for a good luck kiss on opening night. I kiss him on the cheek. 2 years later, we were both in the full play. We were cast as the mother and father of the lead character. After looking at the cast list the first time, he commented, "Looks like we are a couple again." A few weeks later, he put his arm around me during rehearsal. We had gotten friendly, but not much more. A few weeks after that, at the marching band banquet, he wanted to sit with me. I still didn't get the hint. By the end of the night, we had a very short conversation in which we mutually agreed to start dating. Once the drama teacher learned that we were a couple, she told us that we were not allowed to break up. She meant not to break up during the play so we wouldn't cause unnecessary drama. We took it at her word. It's been over 15 years since that fall and we are still together. LOL. He slid me a note on his phone in the notepad app. It said something like, "You wanna go eat some food with me after this?" It was right in the middle of a math class lecture, and the professor was extremely controlling about having your phones out. This was to the point of yelling at you in front of the class or even kicking you out, which wasted so much time and money. Anyways, she obviously noticed and freaked out, but I was too flattered to care. We kept smiling at each other the whole time she lectured us for having our phones out, and we eventually teamed up the rest of the semester as study buddies. He's been my best friend for like 2 years and boyfriend for 1. My hubs and I have been together 15 years. We met in 11th grade in the audience of a play the drama club put on. I thought he was talking in the audience, so I threatened to rip him open from Pistol to Grundle, like a totally reasonable person. I completely forgot about that. A few months later, some Boosters Club had a Valentine's Day fundraiser thing that matched people based on a short personality quiz. We matched, and he approached me with that news. I thought it was adorable that he was nervous and shy, not realizing it's because of the threat from before. Turns out he likes strong, hyper-aggressive women. What it came down to for him wasn't about the kind of approach. It was just taking the plunge and striking up a conversation. He's obsessively nerdy, into the video games, D&D, comic books, etc crap, and I was kind of a party girl, so we were seemingly a mismatch. Yet here we are. I will answer this for my missus as well. Awkward husband here. I told her the story of when a wasp stung me on my prominent member. I have no idea what it's like to have a filter, as I have absolutely no shame. Also because I really don't care what people think about me. I am awkwardly comfortable telling people anything. I told her the story of when a wasp stung me on my prominent member. You can't just say you got your dong stung by a wasp and not tell us the story. I'm the introvert male. I think when I got to be about 22 and still had never had a serious relationship, my parents began to worry about me. One day my dad said there was a nice young girl, 19 at the time, working at his office, and would I be interested in meeting her? At first I said no, thanks, but later that week I went to church, and during the sermon, the speaker looked out over the congregation right into my eyes and said, "God has something special for you. Give him a chance to give it to you." I felt like that was almost an instruction to go ahead and meet this girl. So I called her and we clicked. We've been married over 40 years now. I'm pretty sure that without this kind of prompting I would not have been married. Your dad paid off the speaker to get you a wife ordained by God. That's some next level wingmaning. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.